There's Democrat, left, and both are doing similar things. This is not about political colors. This is not about political parties. It's about doing what's right for the cities. Look, for example, they went to Copenhagen, went up and down the bicycle, came back, and there's a place like 9th Avenue with cars on both sides. So they went to the New York Times, and they told them, we're going to create an area for pedestrians, for cyclists, and for cars. And it didn't take him 30 months or 30 weeks, but it took him 30 days to transform 9th Avenue. And what did they do? Why did they put this buffer and bollards? Because when they were going to do it, people said, oh, you got to do an environmental assessment. Oh, my God. Janet said, the doers, they find solutions to the problems, not problems to the solutions. So she said, let me see the law. And she read it and found a little note that said, if you do a pilot project, you can do the environmental assessment at the same time as the pilot. So she has 140 pilot projects in New York. But then she also found that the people are more open-minded when it's a pilot, because when it's a pilot, she says, let's do it for a year. If it doesn't work, then we paint the lines and take the bollards. If it works, then we do a permanent construction. And then, going from this to this is not about money. It's about having the vision and the guts to do it. Broadway. 2 years ago, there were the bike lanes. Who was using it? The cars and the kamikazes. And then Janet came and said, Broadway, that's where the stars come out and go to the Broadway theater. The stars here are the pedestrians. Everybody's pedestrian. Every trip begins and ends by someone walking. You walk to the car, you walk to transit, you walk to the bike, or you walk by itself. So let's have the red carpet for the pedestrians. And then she said, this is Broadway. Let's have a vision. And this is what we need also in Burlington. Have a vision. And the mayor was saying that you're going to do the plan for the city. All of it's about having a vision. Where do we want? And we were just talking with the council that you keep asking, what are we going to be like 20 years from now? That's what they were thinking. What is this street going to be like 20 years from now? And they started dreaming. And then they started doing. And they're doing, because these are places, not taking 1 centimeter from the sidewalk, 2 lanes from the cars, and they started creating areas. And again, just a little bit of chairs and tables and umbrellas and paint and create. In Times Square, this is Broadway. In Times Square, 8 blocks, they didn't take 2 lanes, they took all of it. And they created along Times Square areas. This is before and this is after. And then, after a year, now Mayor Bloomberg came out and said this is going to be permanent. So now there is an international contest where they're going to do it properly. But it was a pilot project for a year. And they also did their Sunday bikeways, and they did it on Park Avenue, the main street, and so on. And I'm not going to go through the 140, don't worry. This is the last one. So when they go and say, why don't we create a green space? People say, oh, this is a pilot? That woman is crazy. But let her do it and she'll find out that it doesn't work. So then Janet comes in with her green paint and the umbrellas and the chairs. And a year later, they make it permanent. So that's why I say we need a Janet in every city. Someone that finds solutions to the problems and not problems to the solutions. So why is it a perfect opportunity? Because the stars are aligned. If 20 years ago we would have thought, what are the ideal conditions to change? Many are happening now. But we got to think outside the box. So we got some challenges in Burlington, but more than challenges, we have opportunities. Wonderful opportunities. Like Bernard Shaw said, you see things and say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? The other day I was at the University of Waterloo, and I saw this, and why don't we have this attitude? The spirit of the why not? We got to build alliances between the municipality and the region, and the provincial government and the federal, the private sector and the public, and the urban planning and environment and community groups and NGOs and everybody. And like Einstein used to say, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. So it's not only about doing visions, but moving, doing. And maybe the new Einstein is this one who also said, you got to keep going. So let's follow Tina. It's not about the money. It's not a technical issue. It is a political one. That's why we went through ideas of creating a sense of urgency, a political will, doers in the public sector, leadership, and public engagement. So let's focus, and we have been focusing a lot on doing things right. And we focus on how to improve, and we say, okay, let's be a little bit more efficient, and we hit the target, and we hit the bullseye. The problem is that later on we realize that we hit the bullseye, but we hit the wrong target. So it's not only about, the ducks are in a row, so let's not worry too much about making the duck a little bit more and doing things right, but in addition of doing things right, we got to do the right things. So I wish you all the very best in Burlington, and make this the healthiest city in Canada. Make this the place with the best quality of life ever in the world. So all the best. Thank you very much.
Just a little inspirational. That was great, Gil. And you know what I'm going to do now? So I'm going to officially close the meeting. And for those of you who want to stay, we'll do a Q&A. But there's a hockey game on. Game 7. The fact that there's a Game 7 with a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup Finals, the first time there's been a Canadian team in like 18 years, it's a testament to Gil to have all you people here tonight. So Gil, thank you very much again for coming.
I am the one who feels so fortunate that you came. Thank you. When I realized that it was the Game 7, so people are so generous. This is the last anecdote. I was in Sudbury, minus 35 degrees. And I said, minus 35? We're not going to get anybody. We had 80 people at minus 35. And there is nothing in it for any of you on a personal note. No one is paying you to be here. No one is going to get richer being here. Emily's not going to raffle some tickets to go to Aruba for a week. Everybody's here because people want to improve the quality of life of the community. So it's really a testament. It's through generosity of each one of you. So I really thank you from my heart that you showed up. Thank you.
Thank you. So very quickly, Gil, a small token of our appreciation. And so thank you very much again for coming. We have a draw for 5 books called A Farewell to Feather Wagons. And these books were written by Becky Jazz, who's an employee with Halton Region, who's written a book about air quality and climate change for kids. So we've got 5 books we're going to hand out, and Gil's going to draw the lucky winners.
Andrew Wong.
There we go, right in front. Congratulations, Andrew.
Linda Axford.
Linda, there we go.
Lynn Robbie Short.
Okay.
Put the name back in.
Okay, she says draw again. She's seen the book, right?
Susan Fraser.
Susan, there we go. There we go. Congratulations.
Martin Van Zon.
He just left.
Martin just left. Draw again. Or do we want to give it to him? Well, I think we can draw again.
Soba Ahuja.
There we go. Thank you. One more.
And the last one is Arum Kumba. Arum.
Arun Kumbar? Arun left?
Then another one, Laurel Huber. Laurel.
There we go. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Just a few brief words before we formally wrap up for anybody that wants to go. But Gil can stay for another half an hour to answer questions, I'm sure. Yeah, or 20 minutes.
By the way, we have a website. We're a non-profit, so we got tons of videos and documents, and everything is free. And also we have a monthly newsletter, so if anybody wants to sign up.
So just brief thanks again to Cogeco, Burlington Hydro, Burlington Post, the DeGroote School of Business, and AV Tech for sponsoring this evening. I really want to thank my staff, Frank and Daphne and Wendy, for all their support. I came up with this idea. They've been running with it ever since. I've been giving them some ideas for speakers, and Gil was one of them. They've just been dealing with all the details, so I appreciate that very much. Tonight's presentation will be broadcast on TV Cogeco, Channel 23 here in Burlington, Oakville, on Thursday, June the 30th at 9:30 p.m., and again on July the 7th at 9:30 p.m. And both tonight's event and the previous event, where Christopher Hume also took some shots at Mac about the location here as a theme. Hopefully we won't hear it all the time in every meeting. But both tonight's event and the previous event will soon be available on Cogeco's free TV Cogeco On Demand service. So watch for the mayor's website for more information as that becomes available. The next event like this, the next Inspire Burlington event, will be in September. And we look forward to giving you some information when we have that finalized. So thank you very much for coming in tonight. And does anybody have any questions for Gil? So, a number. So we'll start with Jean, then we'll go to Chris.
Gil, thank you very much for your passion.
You want to stand up in front of the mics there?
Oops, sorry. How do we turn it on?
It's working.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your passion. We felt your passion tonight. We really appreciate your passion. You spread the message around the world. And I wanted to ask you tonight, in New York, you pointed out New York is a great example. We've been to New York. I happen to love New York. How did they do it? How did they get it done? Is it a group of citizens pushing from the bottom up, or is it from the top down? Because that's what Burlington has to do. We have to emulate the cities that get it done. How do they do it?
Well, I think they do it in different ways. Every city is different. and every case is different. Sometimes it's bottom up, sometimes it's top down. That's why I said that you need the 5 elements. The sense of urgency. For example, they declare a sense of urgency. New York, all of a sudden, Bloomberg did an NYC plan, and he said, we're going to grow by 1 million people. And he said, 1 million is gigantic. If we don't do something, we're going to collapse. So even just with 1 million people, they have 8 million people, so it's going to grow by 1 million. That's nothing. We got 7 million in the GTA, in the extended GTA, and we're going to go by 3.7 million, so it's much more. But nevertheless, we don't seem to have a sense of urgency. Like, you don't perceive at the municipal or regional or provincial level, not in Burlington, but in general, you don't perceive, or the media, that there is a sense of urgency. So that was one of the things that was very successful in New York. Mayor Bloomberg was able to create that sense of urgency. Then he had a champion as commissioner of DOT. And the commissioner of DOT did a lot of great things. But some cities are different. For example, in Vancouver, it has been the director of planning, Larry Beasley and Ann McAfee. So every city is different. But people have to, the citizens also have to participate. The citizens can no longer be spectators. They have to write letters to the editor, go to the public meetings, call up the radio stations. And I think that a combination of all of them will get it done. But we got to realize that it's not just doing an analogy of hockey. It's not just moving the puck around. If it doesn't cross the line, it doesn't count. So we not only have to move the puck around, but we got to score the goal, and we got to get it done.
Okay, thank you. We need champions. I hope the mayor and the councilors are here, Mr. Dennison, Mr. Sharman. I hope you're our champions. I hope city staff that came are also our champions. Thank you.
That's why I brought Gil here. Chris.
Yeah, thanks very much. It truly was an inspiring presentation. One of the issues that Burlington has is that there are no shortcuts for bicyclists. What I mean by that is, for example, we have long blocks in many of our existing subdivisions, so that there's no advantage in terms of reducing the distance to get to a shop by taking your bicycle or walking. You have to go the same amount of distance as if you're walking, as if you're driving. And have there been any places in the world that have been able to deal with that kind of situation where you have a lot of existing development without those kinds of right-of-ways, so that people can minimize the distances they have to travel? I've seen it in many other parts of the world where subdivisions are designed that way. As a matter of fact, some of the older subdivisions in Burlington are much more designed that way, but the new subdivisions are really awful in terms of making it easier for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's a very important point. It got to be faster. You know, people are going to be walking or cycling or taking transit when it's either cheaper or faster, or more convenient, or all of the above. It's not just for environmental. Look, in Copenhagen, they did a survey last year. Why is it that people bike? And people said, oh, these Danish, they are so environmentalist. No, 1% is for environmental reasons, 6% for financial reasons, 20% for health, 60-some% because it's easy, fast, and convenient. So we got to make it easy, fast, and convenient. Some cities are building, that's when we're going to build a cities for 3.7 million in the next 20 years, for 50%, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to create. The other thing is, whenever it's not possible, at some point we need to expropriate. For example, when you say expropriate, people say, the communist is expropriating. No, we expropriated hundreds of homes to widen this with the QEW. Because they couldn't agree, they couldn't reach a price with the seller, so then the provincial government expropriated the property. So when we're expropriating to build a highway, it's totally normal. But if we think that all of a sudden to expropriate a piece of land to create a corridor, to connect the trail, or to have a shortcut, I think that eventually we will have to reach that in order to make it pedestrian and cycling friendly and have those shortcuts that you say. We might end up doing that, but it has to be easier, faster, cheaper, and more convenient.
Yeah, another good point is that the QEW is like a river. You can't get across it except on a big bridge. And as a cyclist, all of those bridges are very unsafe. And I know a lot of people have been commenting in terms of the new Burlington strategic plan. That's one of the things we really need to look at, is making some pedestrian connections across the QEW, because right at the moment, when you're north of the QEW, we have a very good trail system, much of which has just been asphalted. So it is very easy to get around on your bike. And there are very good systems south of the QEW. But the connections between the two are non-existent and highly dangerous.
That's an absolutely priority. Yeah. I think that on the north, you got better trails, and in some cases, even more green space. Also, on the east side, you got Bronte Provincial Park. On the west side, you got the escarpment. But also, the people on the north, they want to come down to the city center. They want to come down to Lake Ontario. So it's a great necessity. So that has to become a priority, and it has to be dealt between the municipal, the provincial, the regional, because sometimes some of the roads that crosses, the pavement is the region. The sidewalks or the trails are municipal. The bridge is provincial. But everybody has to remember, I've been in the public sector. In the public sector, we got to remember that the citizens are paying us every other week is to get things done, not to have 20 reasons why things cannot be done. So we got to find the reason, the way on how to do it. In Oakville, on Trafalgar, the city, Oakville is building a lot of seniors' home south of the QE. And you got Oakville Place north of the QE. So it's like a lollipop. Everybody wants to go there. Also, you got City Hall on one side and you got the GO station on the other. Nevertheless, we just widen the QE and there is no. So I would say that is an absolute priority, that it would be great if all of the sudden the governments of Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington get together, and maybe even now that there's going to be a provincial election, they put a little bit of pressure on all parties to say, if you're elected, are you going to do the 20 pedestrian bridges or the 10 or the 5 or whatever? But we do need safe walking and cycling to cross, because that highway, that man-made barrier, cannot continue being such a gigantic barrier forever. That's a very good point.
Diane.
Hi. I was hiking in Bronte Creek Provincial Park back last winter, and I was on the Oakville side looking back over to the Burlington side, and I was shocked because I haven't been there for years, and now what you're looking back over to on the Burlington side is Orchard Park subdivision. So when you're in Orchard Park, you've got a wonderful view of Bronte Creek Provincial Park. But when you're in the park, you're looking back at a subdivision. So my question is there any precedent for legislation for the protection of a view?
Yes, there are, and I think part of the reason is to get more involved. I'll tell you an anecdote. I used to live in Oakville. Now I live in Toronto. When I used to live in Oakville, I was not only a member, but I was the chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And at one point, I invited the executive director of the Bronte Park, and we were talking, and I said, how can we develop more revenue for the park? How can we develop activities? And after the person left, a couple of councilors that were in the meeting, they told me, what are you doing? Why are you giving them ideas on how to get funds? Why are you giving ideas on, that's a provincial park, not a municipal. And I think that it would be great if, for example, they could have maybe bi-monthly meetings with the mayors of Burlington and the mayor of Oakville and the minister at the provincial level could get together 2 or 3 times per year to talk about the strategic issues, and also have an operational committee, because even if the park is provincial, the users, the great majority of users are residents of Oakville or Burlington, and it's a treasure. And the other thing is, if we don't use properly that park, one of these days we're going to get a premier that is going to say, we're running short of money, why don't we sell part of it? And if not enough people are using it, can you imagine if they were going to sell 1 square meter of Central Park of New York, that mayor would be thrown away. Well, if the park, because you got 30 million people going to Central Park every year, but if all of a sudden you don't have enough people going to the park, there might be someone that might think that the most brilliant idea is to sell part of it to a developer or to a golf course. There have been many propositions, so I do think that it's a great opportunity to get involved, including the issues of the view, because that's part of the pollution. How to have a good visual.
Hi. This question for our beautiful mayor in here. The decision makers only, I can see Jack and this gentleman here from Ward 5 and our mayor. Where's the rest of the city council?
I believe they all have commitments tonight.
But did you see this beautiful?
Please do not be critical of our colleagues for not being here tonight.
No, I'm not.
We're very busy.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure they get copies of the DVD from tonight.
Okay.
Because they're all very interested. But they do have events. The city runs all the time. There's stuff going on all the time.
Yeah, I know that.
I know there's other meetings going on. So
I know, but did these soul this beautiful dream of our city if it's going to be like that?
we're going to get them this information, believe me.
Okay.
And believe me, we got Jack and Paul and I here, and we have not finished the draft yet of our strategic plan.
I see.
We're working on it very hard, and I can tell you that one of the themes that's emerging through the strategic plan is something about vibrant neighborhoods and complete neighborhoods, and that includes, being more creative in how we use our streets.
I see.
And I suggest some of the ideas we've heard tonight we can implement very simply with very, very little money. And I just came back from Portland. I was there last week for a few days, having meetings with city staff and so on. And one of the things they do is they have, and Gil alluded to it tonight, is they have 5 different Sundays a year where they close down about 6 to 8 miles of streets in different areas of the city, and they have a festival on the street on a Sunday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. 5 times a year in different areas of the city. And I saw a video of it today, and you can see that easily on YouTube. And it's amazing all the activities they have in the park. Kids blowing bubbles, and they have little pickup baseball games and little football games, and people tossing the frisbee around parks. But people bike to get there, they rollerblade to get there, they use skateboards. So there's all sorts of things that we can do with very little effort and money, but we do need the will, and I suggest there's 3 of us here definitely that have the will, and I'm sure there'll be some others that'll
I trust
join
you,
on with us.
that's the measure to them.
We see Paul
Thank you
shaking
so
his
much.
head, so.
No, and I think, honestly, I think it's great that on a day like with the 7th game, that to have 3, the mayor and 2 councilors. The other thing
I didn't
is
have a
that
choice.
The other thing that at some point, it's gutsy, because the mayor knows me from the past that I'm not politically correct. So I say whatever I think can and should be done. Like, I love McMaster's, but I think this would have been wonderful in the downtown. But nevertheless, so they say, talk about anything that you want. Say anything you want, whatever you want. So I think having 3 results, but also everyone here has a role to play. I mentioned the issue of Sudbury. When we went to Sudbury, for example, we asked the citizens, what can we do? Give me some impatience. You said something are done with little money. That's what we call the impatience. Things that are low cost, low risk, and high visibility. Things that you can do in this year, that you don't have to go to city council for budget. But then this year, so a woman said, Gil, when I'm walking home, the sidewalk is very dark. And I said, yeah, but that's not an impatient. That's not low cost, low risk. And she said, no, it is very low cost. She said, when I'm walking, the sidewalk is very dark, but the street is very well lit. This changed my mind forever. It was like 2.5 years ago. Now, every time that I go to any city, she said, when I'm walking, the streets don't need so much light because the cars already have lights. Mm-hmm. So all I'm asking is for someone to go up on a ladder, and the light that is on the street, turn it 90 degrees so that now it's on the street and on the sidewalk. She said, it's the same post, it's the same light bulb, it's the same cable, it's the same. And she's totally right. When you let the community provide ideas, the community provide wonderful ideas. And she's totally right. Tonight when you go and start looking at the roads, not only of Burlington, but anywhere, you're going to see that most of them, the street is very well lit. Most of them, the sidewalks are very dark. So these are some things that do not cost money. A lot of money is just the ladder and the guy turning 90 degrees. But like that, there are many other things that can be done with paint. So also, when you start with the low-hanging fruits, all of a sudden you gain momentum and you gain credibility and you gain trust from the community. And they say, oh, things are starting to happen. Things are moving forward. So that's also something important.
What's your dream and hope for the world? Like you go around everywhere in the world, and what's a common goal and hope that you want to see happen in the world, like with all the world cities and everything? Big question.
First, I want to ask that I totally agree with you. I think that your comment, having a walkable and bikeable city is both for mental health, for physical health, for general well-being. I think that is very, very important. And we should be able to walk or bike to anywhere. Actually, one of the things that is terrible is when we see all of our teenagers, 13, 14, praying for the day that they turn 16 so that they get their driver's license. And our people in their 70s and 80s terrified of the day that they're going to lose their driver's license. And it's not because they love their cars. No, they love mobility. They love social. They like to be with people. They want to get to places. So at least, like that's one of the goals. Whenever we have cities all over the world where people could walk or bike or take transit, to anywhere they want to have those options where really we could have, this is not for the poor, this is not for the rich, this is for everybody. That we gotta be much more sustainable, and we gotta learn how to be more sustainable. I think that, as I said, in the last 150 years, we doubled the life expectancy. It's incredible. In millions of years, we went to 39 years life expectancy in Canada. In only 150, since 1850 to today, we have more than double the life expectancy. We clearly learned to survive. But it is obvious by all the issues that we're going through of climate change and obesity crisis, of economic crisis, congestion, and so on, that we still have a lot to do in order to learn how to live. So I want to thank everyone very much for coming, and especially the mayor, the councilors for having me here. If anybody has any other issue that you want to talk one-on-one, I can stay a little bit longer, but I think we have gone almost an hour past, no, half an hour. Past the time that we had reserved. So I'm very, very grateful, and I want to thank you, Mayor, for having invited Emily and me to share this evening with you.
And thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much to everybody for... Thank you very much for everybody for coming out tonight, and hopefully Vancouver will be ahead 5-0 when we get home. If you have any comments for Jack or Paul or myself or any of the members of council, please send us an email with your comments about what you thought about tonight. And you know, if we get a bunch of emails from people to say, come on, guys, do some of this stuff, we will. So I think we will anyway, but we would like to you know, hear from you as well. Paul's going to send me 100 tomorrow. So.